It was a normal Tuesday morning.
Lieutenant General Marc Sasseville and Heather Penney flew F-16s for the Air National Guard. On September 11, 2001, they watched two planes hit the World Trade Center.
We knew immediately, as soon as we saw the images, that we needed to protect and defend.
Protect and defend the nation's capital, as commercial airliners had become weapons of war.
What did you understand about the rules of engagement, Heather?
We understood what the threat was. We were looking for a rogue airliner flying low that was not communicating with air traffic control.
The pilots had no time to spare. The country was under attack. They knew of at least one plane still in the sky, flying low. It was United Flight 93.
You got United 93?
They didn't even have time to load missiles.
So you two were flying F-16s that weren't armed with missiles. So how were you going to take down Flight 93?
We were going to have to hit the airplane and disable it somehow.
A kamikaze mission.
Our only choice was going to be to ram the airliner.
After the Pentagon has hit, fighters at nearby Andrews Air Force Base are still preparing to launch. At some unknown point, Flight Squad Commander Lieutenant Colonel Marc Sasseville assembles 3 F-16 pilots and gives them a curt briefing. He recalls saying, "I have no idea what's going on, but we're flying. Here's our frequency. We'll split up the area as we have to. Just defend as required. We'll talk about the rest in the air." All 4 of them dress up and get ready. One officer at Andrews Air Force Base recalls, "After the Pentagon was hit, we were told there were more airliners coming. Not might be, but that they were coming." Meanwhile, a flood of calls from the Secret Service and local FAA flight control centers pour into Andrews Air Force Base as the fighters' response are coordinated. However, the loading of missiles onto the fighters is very time-consuming, and when these fighters finally take off nearly an hour later, they will still launch without the missiles installed. At 9:49 a.m., in the words of the 9/11 Commission, the commander of NORAD, General Ralph Eberhart, directs all air sovereignty aircraft to battle stations fully armed. Apparently, this means all fighters with air defense missiles or missions are to be armed and ready to scramble. This may be connected to counterterrorism czar Richard Clarke's claim that after the Pentagon is hit, he orders an aide to find out where the fighter planes are, and that "I want combat air patrol over every major city in this country now." Another account says calls to bases to scramble don't begin until about 10:01 a.m. It has not been explained why this order wasn't given much earlier. Calls from Air Force bases around the country offering to help had started pouring into NORAD shortly after 9:03 a.m., when televised reports made an emergency situation clear, with a couple of exceptions. Other fighters do not actually start taking off until about 11 a.m. Air Force Lieutenant Heather Penney was given a mission to intercept hijacked United Airlines Flight 93 before it reached Washington, D.C. The rookie FC-16 pilot said she believed she would not come back from that mission. When she was interviewed by ABC News live anchor Lindsay Davis, quote, "I remember how crystal blue the skies were that day. There were so many moments that I remember with such clarity that I could touch, taste, feel, and smell every detail from that day. But what strikes me the most, because of how omnipresent it was throughout the entire day, was the deep, clear blue skies," end quote. At first, Penney said it wasn't immediately clear that an airplane had been deliberately flown into the World Trade Center. When a second plane hit, that's when we knew our nation was under attack. She went to arm her aircraft, but there wasn't enough time. She and another pilot, Marc Sasseville, had to get in the air. "We did not have missiles. We were on a suicide mission, and in order to be able to take down any airliner, Sass would ram his aircraft into the cockpit where the terrorists were to destroy the flight controls. I would take the tail by ramming my jet into the tail of the aircraft. I would aerodynamically unbalance the airplane and tip it over so it would crash straight into the ground by targeting both ends of the aircraft. It was our plan to prevent any additional casualties. After witnessing the horror of the attacks in New York, she said she understood what needed to be done. She went on to say, I had raised my hand and swore an oath to protect and defend the nation. If this was where the universe had placed me at this moment in time, this was my purpose. We knew what needed to be done, and there were no tears. The prayers, to be honest, she said, Dear God, don't let me mess this up, because of how important it was and the potential consequences if we were not successful. But Penney did not complete her suicide mission. Flight 93 passengers attempted to retake the plane, and in the struggle, the aircraft crashed in a field in Pennsylvania, killing everyone on board. It was the only one of the 4 hijacked aircraft that day that did not reach the terrorist's intended target. Penney, whose call sign was Lucky, said she didn't feel lucky for escaping her suicide mission that day. Penney said she did not have the chance to reflect on what might have been. She immediately moved to 24/7 combat air patrols, flying from midnight to 4 a.m. for nearly a year, she said. Then she went to train for combat operations in Iraq, in which she served 2 tours. The story of Heather Penney is not known by many, but maybe, hopefully, future generations will know of the bravery she tried to embark in saving just a few people.